Okay. So, welcome to Holistic Connections, Conversations with Holistic Practitioners. And today I want to welcome my guest, Shannon. Hi, Shannon.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for being here. So, tell us a little bit about what you do in the holistic healing world.
Sure. I started out as a coach, and I really wanted to coach everybody on everything, and
Right.
that's really hard to market.
Yeah.
Um, so, so I spent a lot of time soul searching, and I have diabetes. I've had diabetes
Mm,
for over 25 years, and it's type 2. So I um, I have a lot of emotions around it, and
sure.
as I learned more about coaching practices and techniques, I thought this could really, really help people with diabetes. If I had had
Yeah.
this when I was first diagnosed, I could have maybe had a little bit different path.
Yeah.
So I just kind of woke up one day and it was like a voice said, you know what you need to be doing, right? You need to be doing diabetes coaching. So
Yes,
here
yes.
I am.
So great. I love it so much. And, we've spoken a little bit before we were recording, and I've said it a few times, but this is so needed. I think the smaller the niche for people, the more needed it is and the more helpful it's going to be because that's where your focus is. I love that so much. So many people now with diabetes and so many women and just fighting against it and having the hardest time. And yeah, and I know that you have said you have a website, Full Circle Life and Health Coaching, right?
Yep.
.com. And I know that you have said that that helping women with this is, has been more of a calling. And like you just described, it kind of chose you, kind of told you what you needed to do. And you're like, okay, I'll answer this call, right?
Absolutely. And my intention, of course, is to help women lower their blood sugar, lower their A1C, have better labs, lose
Yeah.
weight, regain energy. Since my blood sugar's gotten under control, I have so much more energy.
Oh,
But
nice.
it's also about building resilience.
Mm-hmm.
This is a lifelong condition that you have to manage,
Yeah.
and it's finding that strength and that support around you to manage this for the long term.
Yeah.
And really, like for me, when I was diagnosed, I had fear, I had shame, I had
Sure.
guilt, and I had resistance.
Yeah.
I didn't want to eat the stuff I was supposed to eat. I didn't want to have to exercise. I still don't like water, but
Yeah.
everything's a work in progress,
Yeah.
right? So, what part of what coaching did for me was figure out where that resistance was coming from,
Mm-hmm.
digging really, really deep into even childhood things to
Yeah.
figure out. My mom liked to use water to punish us.
Mm.
I
Yeah. So
remember,
of course, you're
right.
going to have a resistance against water. Yeah.
And whenever she and my dad would go on a diet, it was punishment for all of us.
Yeah.
And whenever they would decide that we were going to go on an exercise kick, it was like punishment for all of us.
Yeah.
And so I had to get past the idea that taking care of my body was some sort of punishment
Yeah.
and that eating crap was some sort of treat. And that
Right.
is really hard to get past. And it takes a lot of work and a lot of time,
Yeah.
and it takes somebody kind of guiding the way. I think of myself as a Sherpa, a guide. Um, I like to help people find their way. I don't like to give them a path
Yeah.
because everybody's path is different.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. So are you doing one-on-one coaching sessions or is it groups? Is it online, in person, all of that?
So I do primarily virtual one-on-one coaching.
Okay.
I am considering adding a membership
Hmm.
tier
Yep.
where it can be more group coaching. So it's a little bit more accessible to folks than one on one coaching.
Yeah.
And I'm developing a couple of workbooks.
Oh,
One is
nice.
called Start Strong for folks who are newly diagnosed with diabetes.
Oh, nice.
One is Stay Strong for folks who have been going at it for a while and are doing
Hmm.
well, but the motivation is starting to wane. And then Fresh Start for people who do like I did, kind of drop in, drop out. And at
Yeah.
some point, you get the news that you have got to take this seriously now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's a little nuance to each one. There's a little bit of tweaking, but generally it's, figuring out what works for you,
Yeah.
whatever kind of diet that looks like. For me, I have to eat very, very low carb.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can eat some carbs. I just can't.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I want people to find their own path, because
Yeah.
what works for me doesn't always work for everybody else. And I'm not a prescriptive person.
Yeah.
I want everybody to figure out what's best for them.
Yeah.
So I just like to offer up options. Um, I love my doctor that I have now. I have not always
Good.
had doctors who were willing to go on that search with me.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of doctors, and if you are working with an RD, they have to follow what the American Diabetes Association says.
Right. Sure.
And that has taken a while to catch up with the science.
Yeah.
So I had a doctor less than 5 years ago telling me 50% of your calories should be from carbohydrates.
Mm,
And that is just not sustainable for
right.
somebody that's had diabetes as long as I have.
Yeah.
So, I figured out that I have to be a little bit of a rebel and go out there and find out what works for me and do it,
Yeah.
and prove the doctors wrong.
Right.
Um, but at the end of the day, it's my health; it's not theirs.
Yeah.
Um, and advocating for yourself is another thing that I can teach people. My career that I was in for a really long time was in nonprofit,
Mm.
and I worked with people living with HIV, mental health, substance
Oh,
use,
nice.
and housing
Yeah.
issues. So, self advocacy and having an advocate on your side are absolutely imperative for
Yeah.
folks that are dealing with those issues.
Yeah.
So, that's the background I come from. And that's kind of the approach I take, is that you need to figure out what works for you, but you need
Yeah.
somebody telling you that it's okay to do that. And
Right.
it's
Right.
okay to question your doctor.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think especially, I imagine we're sort of in the same age group and a lot of women in our age group, mostly and above, I would say, have a really hard time sort of advocating for yourselves, and especially when it comes to the doctor. You go to the doctor and what they say is law, and you don't question it, and you just do what they say. And so I wonder, is that kind of something that you come across a lot of times with clients of yours, with women that are, probably in our age group, that have a hard time really advocating for themselves? Is that something you find?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There are a lot of women who want to try more natural
Yeah.
remedies and more natural ways to manage their blood sugar and less medication. And doctors just are not into that.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you just have to say, like, give me 3 months. Let's
Mm-hmm.
see how it goes. I'll come back in 3 months and we'll do labs again.
Yeah.
And if I'm right, then we do what I say. If I'm wrong, I'm willing
Yeah.
to consider what you're offering.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
But
that's a great compromise.
it is hard
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
we were taught, or I was taught, especially in the
Mm-hmm.
South, to
Yeah.
be sweet,
Yeah. Don't
um,
question authority.
speak when
Yeah.
spoken to, seen not heard, all of those
Mm-hmm.
things. And even though I was a leader at work,
Mm-hmm.
um, once you get in that tiny little doctor's office and they have on a white coat and you don't, it feels very different. The power dynamic is very different than it
Yeah.
is anywhere else in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to kind of think of a couple of things. Number one, they work for me. I'm paying
Exactly.
them.
Exactly. Yeah.
I respect them or I wouldn't be there, but they work for me.
Right.
The second thing I had to remember is that they're kind of frontline staff. They
Right.
are doing the best they can with what they were taught,
Yeah.
and they're under so much pressure from their
Mm-hmm.
medical system to get
Oh,
numbers where the medical system wants it and where the insurance company wants them.
yeah.
And I think that unfortunately, just a lot like education, takes
Mm-hmm.
the creativity and the willingness to try things out of the picture.
Right.
Because if 90% of your diabetics don't have an A1C of 7, then you might not get your bonus, or you
Mm.
might get written up or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just like education. Your test scores have to be in a certain place.
Yeah.
So the quality of the medical care is not what's important, it's the outcomes. Where if you are managing a lifelong illness, the quality of the medical
Mm-hmm.
care is very important.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
okay to say, hey, I don't want to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And if they say you have to, you don't have to. You can find another doctor.
Right, right, right.
And with
Absolutely.
telehealth, you can find another doctor anywhere.
Right, right. It
So,
doesn't even have to just be, yeah, in your own little neighborhood or whatever, in
yeah,
your own
because
area.
I know a
Yeah,
lot of folks, I do some work now in rural health, and there aren't a lot of options if you
right.
live in a more rural area.
Yeah.
And maybe you do feel like you're trapped with one
Mm-hmm.
doctor, one choice. But telehealth makes that a little more open, and you can
Right,
make some different choices if you need to.
right. So you sound like somebody that really has a lot of drive and a really lot of passion, not only for this, but what you had done before. So where do you think that you got this drive from and this passion to be so helpful to those who, who may not know where else to find help, whether it's for diabetes or, you know, people with HIV or homeless or anything that you have done. Where do you think you have found that drive within yourself? Where did that come from?
I credit it a lot to my dad. My dad started out as an appliance salesman at
Mm.
Montgomery Ward's. I don't know if people remember Montgomery Ward's.
I do.
And he worked on commission, and he
Uh-huh.
worked 90 hours a week because he had to make
Uh,
enough to afford
Support
his
the
young
family. Yeah.
family. And he was an amazing salesman. Like, you could go in thinking like, oh, I need one of those stoppers for my sink, and you'd leave like with a new dishwasher, because that's how that's how my dad was. And as he grew in his role and became a manager, he really saw himself as a servant leader, and that
Hmm.
he was there to take care of his staff, not to boss them.
Nice,
And
nice.
I've
Yeah.
always I've always kind of emulated that.
Hmm.
um, I don't mess with people's time. I don't mess with people's money. I don't ask people to do things I'm not willing to do.
Yeah.
Um, and I really did see like the people who worked for me and worked with me were my clients.
Yeah.
And the people that we served as an organization were their clients. So I credit my dad a lot. And I also credit my parents, like friends that they were friends with my whole childhood. And
Yeah.
even now, both my parents are gone, but I still talk to
Yeah.
their two best friends.
Oh, nice,
So
nice.
they have a brother who is gay,
Hmm.
and I always knew that he was not married, and he had a roommate.
Hmm.
That's how they said it in the
Right.
80s, right? It was
Right,
his
right.
roommate. And so when I figured out that wasn't actually his roommate, it was his partner, I was
Hmm.
furious that
Mm.
he had been required to say this was his roommate, and that they couldn't go to church
Right.
together, and they couldn't attend holidays together with the family. For one family
Yeah.
or another had an issue with it. I was furious.
Yeah.
So when I got the chance to work in HIV when I was in my late 20s, it really did call to me.
Yeah.
At the same time, I have a slight hearing loss
Hmm.
and have had it since childhood. I had terrible ear infections and all that
Oh my.
jazz. So the the daughter of my parents' best friends, she and I grew up together. We're the same age. Our birthdays are literally 23 days apart.
Yeah.
um, she went to work in serving children with hearing loss.
Oh,
So it was just
nice.
this amazing kind of full circle moment that her
Yeah.
family really influenced where my career went, and my family influenced where her career went.
Hmm.
And it's just kind of like this braid
Yeah.
of influences.
So
And
nice.
I feel like my furiousness at what my friend's brother had to live with,
Yeah.
and my honoring kind of what I grew up with. Like, it just
Yeah.
worked out that if you're going to be a servant leader, you have to have some drive, because
Right.
that stuff doesn't pay for itself. I
Right.
raised money for it. I wrote grants for it. I
Yeah.
developed new programs. I saw a gap, and I figured out ways to fill it, because
Wow.
I didn't think it was fair for me to have anything that my clients didn't have.
Yeah.
I got in therapy. It was wonderful. I'm like, my clients need this.
Yeah.
So we developed a
Absolutely.
mental health program. So I really tried to fill gaps and make sure that every human being that I came in contact with that had a need, we figured out a way to do it or send them where it could be done.
So great. So great. I love that. I love
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you. So you said you didn't want you weren't willing to do anything that your clients you're not asking your clients to do anything that you're not willing to do yourself. And so you also have, I don't know if I believe it's in your if it's in your website, but you say that you're living proof that your program for your coaching for diabetic women, you're living proof that it works. So
Yes,
share a little bit about that, if you would, about how you realize that this will work, that this program will work.
sure. So my program is built on four things: um, understanding your data,
Mm-hmm.
following your regimen, having support, and developing a mindset.
Nice.
So first, I had to learn the data. I had to learn what all those numbers mean when they do
Yeah.
labs.
I think that's a huge one of the biggest hurdles probably, and a huge problem is that people are, thrown all this information and then they get home and it's like, what does this mean again? Or
Yep.
what's going on and how important are these numbers and yeah,
And
so go
one of
go.
those numbers, your HbA1c, is a 3 month average
Mm.
of your blood sugar. And people are like, I want my A1C to go down tomorrow. Well, nothing works that way.
Right, right.
So learning kind of how that stuff works. And then your regimen, again, it's finding out what works for you. I use a continuous glucose monitor. I've
Hmm.
had one for a couple of years now. I absolutely
Nice.
love it. It shows me that I can have a teeny tiny little bit of potato. I cannot have bread. So
Yeah. So
those
you
are,
learn what works for you,
yep,
how your body reacts to different things. Yeah, you
yep.
learn that through that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And you can even get them over the counter now.
Mm,
If you can't get a prescription or if your insurance doesn't cover it, you can get them over the counter. There are two different
nice.
kinds.
We've really come a long way.
Yes, we have.
That's great.
There was a time you couldn't even get like a regular glucose
Right.
monitor without a prescription.
Right, right.
So I use that. I know what my body, how I need to eat for my body. I take my medications. I use a pretty simple but important to me system. I have a pill box for each day, like a little pill box for each day of the week that fits in my purse.
Nice. Yep.
I put my daytime meds in there, and then I can make sure that I took them. That way,
Mhm.
I don't miss them and I don't double take them.
Yeah.
So, I also have ADHD, so it's been really
So
important to
that
develop
helps.
some
Yeah.
systems.
Yeah.
um, and then following, the regimen that my doctor's given me and things we've talked about, I walk for about 10 minutes after every meal.
Hmm.
And I only eat when I'm hungry. I'm not hungry in the morning. I don't eat breakfast. So
Yeah.
that works for me. If I am hungry, I eat. It's just like learning to listen to your body,
Yeah.
especially if you grew up like we did in boomer households where you really weren't taught that, and
Yeah.
really what your body had to say didn't matter because you were told don't cry and you can't really be hungry and I'll give you something to cry, like all the things that we were
Yeah.
told.
Yeah.
We didn't
You
learn to
eat at
trust our
mealtime, whether
bodies.
you're hungry or not, and yeah, and you better
Yep.
eat it all. Yeah.
All of those things were
Right.
teaching us to disregard what our body was telling us.
Yeah.
So anyway, I learned to do that. Having support for years and years. I didn't tell anybody I was living with diabetes.
Oh,
And so not only did I not have support, I also didn't have celebration when things went well. I didn't
yeah.
have anybody to tell that I had done well. So, I've learned who I can tell
Hmm.
and what platforms I can use to talk to people about it.
Yeah.
And therefore I can give and get support. And that's helped a lot.
Yeah.
And
So important.
then the mindset of like, yes, this is every day.
Hmm.
And yet as I see myself getting healthier,
Hmm.
I understand why dealing with it every day is worth it.
Yeah.
I have built two businesses now for myself. I have three dogs I take care of. My kids are launched. um,
Yes.
I have energy to do whatever I want to now. And that
Nice.
definitely hasn't always been the case.
Right.
So since I've started really using the system, I've lost 40 pounds. I
Wow.
have my A1C has gone from 8.2, which is it's getting up there where
Hmm.
yeah, they don't love that, to
Right.
to 5.4, which is below pre-diabetic.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So
The
so
proof
that's
is in the pudding.
absolutely.
There
And
you
like I
go.
said, I have so much more energy. So I
Yeah.
feel healthy. I feel better in my clothes. I feel better doing yoga. I don't
Yeah.
feel like people are staring at me when I go out for a walk.
Oh, yeah.
And it's worked because I've worked it. like I can tell you the system, and if you don't do it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But for people who are really motivated to make a change, that's a good place to start. And then to have somebody with you, guiding you, being your Sherpa,
Yeah.
cheering you on when you don't think you can do it, and cheering for you when you do. That's
Yeah.
just invaluable. So that's the
Yeah.
part that I love the most.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So where can people reach you? I know you've got your website, the first Full Circle Health. Is it Full Circle Life and Health Coach.com? And then you're
Like,
on Instagram,
yep.
Full
Full
Circle.
Circle
Yeah, go ahead.
lifeandhealthcoaching.com is
Okay.
that's my website. When
Okay.
you're late to the internet, you get a really long website.
Right.
Like you don't get to pick something short and easy to remember. But you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Probably
Okay.
less on TikTok, but
Yeah.
every now and then I get on there.
Yeah. I
Um,
recently left TikTok, but yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of people there still for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm happy, people can email me. My email is on my website. I think my phone number is even on my website. So
Okay.
I am happy to speak with folks, do an introductory session, make sure we're a
Hmm.
good fit and that you feel like you'll learn something
Right.
and want to make a change in your health.
Yeah.
And I just really feel privileged to be able to do this work and help people.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll put those all your links in the description below. And you have your own podcast. So I want to take a minute and talk, let you talk a little bit about that, share about that.
Sure. It's called Come Full Circle with Shannon.
Oh,
And
nice.
in season one, I talked to a lot of other coaches, and we talked about different coaching techniques and ways people got into coaching and different things people can coach on. I had a
Oh,
grief coach on. I had somebody who's like a 75 hard coach.
oh,
People who just coach on all kinds of things,
nice.
and talking about the ways that coaching is similar, but also where it diverges was super interesting. I think I had about 15 different folks come on.
Wow. Yeah.
And then season two, I'm really focusing on diabetes. So
Okay. Yep.
I've told my story. I've
Nice.
had a couple of folks who are type 1 diabetics. I've had an episode on sleep and exercise. We didn't talk today a lot about sleep, but sleep is super important.
Right. It's
And
so important for so many things, but it's the kind of a thing that you can't, you can't always control that so much. I mean, there's
right.
definitely different tricks and tips to get better sleep, but sometimes it's just, yeah, for some
Yeah.
people, it just is a battle,
Yeah.
lifelong battle.
My husband is super committed to the perfect sleeping environment.
Oh,
So
good.
we do, it's completely dark. It's
Yeah.
chilly in our room. We have a noise machine, fans.
Yeah.
Um, and then if even that isn't working, my tricks are number one, to lay on a heating pad and let it relax
Mm.
my shoulders and my back
Mm-hmm.
for a few minutes. And the other one is to use an app called Insight Timer.
Oh, I love
And
Insight Timer. Yes.
it's got a literal million of sleep
Right.
meditations on there, so that
Yep.
always helps me when nothing else will.
Yeah.
um, and then the episode for this week was about diabetes and mental health,
Oh,
and
nice.
how we, sometimes there are mental health issues that go along with it.
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of people again feel the shame and guilt and fear.
Yeah.
And the therapist that came on, she shared a video that she just did of 15 different affirmations to
Oh,
deal with shame.
nice. Nice.
And
Yeah.
then last night, I recorded an episode with another friend of mine who's a therapist, and we talked about managing diabetes and other chronic illnesses when you have ADHD,
Yeah.
and how important it is
Oh,
to create systems that work, because your
yeah.
brain might not always.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that one will drop next Thursday.
Oh, nice. Great. Great. Okay. So, is there anything else that you would like to share or make sure that people know before we sign off today?
I just want to tell you that having diabetes, being overweight, having any chronic illness, anything
Hmm.
that you manage on a long-term basis, it is not a moral failing. It is
Right.
not a just is not a reflection of your character. It
Oh,
is
gosh. Right.
biology. And I like to meet things scientifically and also with compassion,
Yeah.
because it is really hard to listen to what mainstream media says about chronic illness and think that it's
Yeah.
not a moral failing.
Yeah.
And it is not. It is your body failing. So
Yeah.
get some help around that. Let's get your body as healthy as it can be. And if you're one of those people whose self-esteem comes from aligning your values and your work,
Mm-hmm.
you will get this under control. It won't be an issue.
Nice, nice. And I think that, once you work on one area of your life, I really imagine that people come to you with diabetes to help manage that and get that under control in a more natural and holistic way. And I really imagine that they end up having other things that are doing better in their lives and in their bodies and with their health that they didn't even expect to
Mm-hmm.
happen. Because once you start to heal, whether it's mentally or physically, other things, because our bodies are, everything's connected. So
Yep.
I really believe that, if you're healing one aspect, you're also going to begin to heal in other aspects of your life too. So I imagine that that happens quite a bit. And people are like,
Absolutely.
I didn't expect to have this happen through this, but it did. So and
Yeah.
now, a lot of things are better, more than just this one thing that I was coming to you for. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
One of the things that they said in our coaching program was the way you do one thing is the way you do everything.
Right.
So as your diabetes gets better, probably your blood pressure gets better, and
Yes.
probably your meal planning gets better, and probably your house is a little tidier, and all those things that
Right. Because
represent chaos.
you have more energy, so you're doing more, maybe you're sleeping better, and like you said, you're losing weight and just gaining strength and yeah. Yeah.
And things matter differently to you as you're taking care of yourself. And then that I think of it as concentric circles. As you go outside
Yeah.
of the circle that's just yourself, things definitely get better. So
Yeah. So nice. I love that so much. So thank you for sharing with us today. I really appreciate it. This is so important. Just like, all the conversations I've had with people have been so important, and I'm loving doing these. So thank you for being a part of it today. And if anybody else is a holistic practitioner and would like to come on and share what you do, please let me know. So we'll
well,
talk to you later.
thank you so much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
You're so welcome. Thank you. And again, all the links will be below if you want to reach Shannon.
Thank you.
Yes.